All right, all right. Good evening. How is everybody? Hello, hello. Hey, Stephanie. I see you just came on. Hey. If everyone can hear me, please let me know in the comments really quick. I just want to make sure everything is good because we're going to get right into it tonight. Can you hear me? Hi, Sean. Can you all hear me? Let me know in the comments, please. Awesome. You guys are so great. Okay, awesome. You can hear me? Thank you so much. Okay, well, good evening. It's been a while since I've gone live, so I'm really excited about getting into this tonight because we're going to be talking about one of my favorite topics, of course, which is branding, right? And so, as a brand strategist, what I do is I really help people to not only set goals, but actually create actionable steps and strategies to achieve those goals. And so tonight, we're going to kind of dive into the world of branding a little bit and we're going to talk about a few things. I'm going to hang out with you all and it's going to be a great time, right? So, the purpose of tonight is just for us to go over some common branding mistakes that you may want to avoid. We'll talk about some myths that people associate with branding a lot that could be holding you back. And then I'm going to give you some tips that you can take and start applying tonight to start improving your brand. Okay, so if you know somebody who could benefit from this information, who could benefit from this live, please, please, please feel free to tag them in the comment section. Go ahead and share this so that everybody that needs to hear it has access to this information. Okay, so wherever you guys are tuning in from, go ahead and say hello in the comments. Let me know that you're here, that you're tuning in, and let me know where you're tuning in from so I can say hello to you. And of course, if you have any questions at all while I'm going through some of this information on the live tonight, feel free to go ahead and put your questions in the comment section for me so that I can address them as we go through the live session. Okay. So let's go ahead and get into it, right? So, the first thing we're going to talk about tonight, the first thing I'm going to really get into is some of the common branding mistakes that you may want to avoid that you may not even know that you are making with your brand right now. Okay. So we'll talk about some common branding mistakes to avoid. So the first one, and I would say this is probably one of the more prominent mistakes that I've seen in my experience with clients and branding is not having a clear message. And the reason why this is so important, to be honest with you, is that it's literally one of not just one of the most common mistakes, but one of the most important things because your message is the way that you connect with your target audience, right? And so if your messaging is off or the way that you're delivering that messaging is off, you can be missing out on opportunities, missing out on new clients, missing out on, opportunities for you to really grow your business. And so it's very, very important that people are able to quickly understand who you are, what you do, how you can help them, and the value that you provide, right? Because clarity is going to be the most important thing. So, for example, right, instead of just saying, I help businesses to grow, you could probably be a little more specific and say, I help small businesses to triple, let's say you're in social media, right? To triple their social media engagement in 30 days. So, the more clear and concise that you can be about your messaging, the better. Okay, so that's the main thing. You have to make sure your messaging is clear. So that's mistake number one. And if you're struggling with, having a clear message, I actually do assist with that as well, but we can talk about that a little bit more later. But you want your messaging to be crystal clear. Okay. So let's talk about mistake number two. So, mistake number two, and this is the big one too, is trying to appeal to everyone. All right. So, the key to really making your brand stand out is not just knowing the value that you provide, but knowing exactly who you serve. And so you have to make sure that you're not just casting your net, broadly. You have to be very specific about who it is that you're trying to target. Who are you trying to reach? And the more specific you can get about that, the better. And you're going to see a very consistent theme of being specific tonight, being clear and being concise tonight, because it's very, very important. The more you can niche down exactly who it is that you're targeting, the better. So, an example of that would be, let's say my target audience is moms, right? I don't want to just say moms. Are you targeting stay at home moms? Are you targeting single moms? Are you targeting, you have to be very, very specific about what type of moms that you're targeting and what their pain points are, what it is that they really need from you. I'm targeting moms that, really need help with their business. I'm targeting mompreneurs. You have to be really specific. Don't just say moms. Try to really figure out who your ideal client is and get more specific about who exactly you're targeting. And the more specific you can get, the more direct and on point and on target your messaging and everything that you do concerning your brand is going to be. All right. So let's see who else we have coming in. I see we have a few comments coming in. So, hey, Jared, thanks for tuning in tonight. Good to see you. We have Oswald. Hey, Oswald, thanks for tuning in tonight. I know we have some people coming in and out. So, hey, y'all, if you're just coming in, welcome. Feel free to go ahead and put any questions that you have about branding in the comments for me, and I'll be happy to get to those as we go through this live session tonight. But we're talking about some common branding mistakes to avoid, right? So, the first one was not having a clear message, the second one was trying to appeal to everyone. And then this third mistake, right? This third one is another big one, inconsistent presence. Okay. And so let me be delicate with how I say this. Inconsistent presence. So when you are presenting your brand, right, whether it's on social media, whether it's, in your marketing materials, whatever it is that you're presenting to people, hey, you want to make sure that your image is consistent, right? Your quality is consistent, your imaging is consistent, your visuals are consistent. And that can be in the form of, making sure that you're using the same colors in your color palette. If you don't have a color palette, you're going to need to get one. Making sure that your fonts are consistent, making sure that the professional quality of your photos is consistent and your content is consistent. You want to make sure that that imagery is consistent across the board, right? And so being inconsistent with that can kind of throw people off. And the reason why consistency is so important when it comes to branding is because brand recognition, right? Write that word down if you're taking any notes. But brand recognition is so important because the more people see your brand and the more familiar they get with that consistent imagery, the easier it is for them to remember you. And that's going to come in handy when they need your service, right? Because you want to be at the forefront of people's minds when they say, oh, hey, I need this service. Who can I go to? Oh, wait, so and so has been posting about their business, right? So you want to be at the forefront of people's minds. So the more consistent you are with your imagery and the more consistent you are with actually being present, right? It's not just your presence, but being present, showing up online, posting on social media, going to these networking events, the more consistent you are, the easier it's going to be for people to remember you and to have you at the top of their mind when they're ready to purchase or buy that service. So that's also a very big mistake that I see a lot of people make, is not just being inconsistent with their presence, especially online presence, but being inconsistent with their presence, period. Like you have to show up, right? And you have to keep your name out there. So that's another really, really big mistake. So we've gone over three of those mistakes so far. If y'all have any questions, please, please, please go ahead and put those in the comment section for me, because I'd love to give you guys some feedback and answer some of those questions that you may have about branding. And especially if you're new to the concept of branding or don't know as much about it and you want to learn more, I'm happy to answer those questions for you. Okay. So those are some common mistakes. Anybody can relate to any of those mistakes? Let me know in the comments. Okay. Oh, hey, Howie. Thanks for tuning in. I have my phone over here to see comments too. So if you see me looking over, it's because I'm trying to make sure I'm not missing anybody's comments. But hey, Howie, thanks for tuning in. All right. So let's go ahead and move on to the second thing I wanted to touch on tonight, which is some branding myths, right? We're going to debunk some of these branding myths. Okay. So the first myth that we're going to talk about tonight, that branding is just about looking professional. Okay, so granted, yes, that is part of what branding is, right? A lot of people, when they say the word branding or you think of branding, you automatically think of your logo, your color palette, all the visual components of what a brand is, right? But branding is so much more than just what you see. It's literally the overall experience that you give to people, whether that's through your, your presence, the way that you show up to people, whether that's through your messaging, whether that's through the way that you articulate your value, the way that you communicate, all of these different things, your brand's voice and tone, the way that you tell your brand story, all these different components make up what your brand actually is. And so just limiting branding to the visual aspects of it limits you because you don't really have a full understanding of it and you're not able to really maximize what your brand experience is for your customers. Oh, we got a question. Stephanie said, let me pull it up so everybody can see it. Okay. Stephanie said, when you mention color palette, can you elaborate more about that? Does each color have a meaning? So, yes, that's a great question, Stephanie. So, yes, when I mention a color palette, I mean having a set of colors, right? So, you want to have like your primary colors, secondary colors. You want to have colors in your color palette that you're going to consistently use in all of your designs, all of your imaging, etc., right? And so, when you have that color palette, yes, it's important to choose colors that how can I put this? You want to choose colors that are going to align with your brand, right? And what I mean by that is every single color, right? There's a science, there's a psychology to colors, right? So every color that we see makes us feel a certain type of way. It emotes a certain emotion. It makes us feel a certain type of way, right? And so, for example, you'll see a lot of times like fast food restaurants, they use the color red in their signs, right? And that's because the color red increases appetite, it increases adrenaline, right? It makes people more impulsive. That's the word I'm looking for. And so if you know that and you attach it to something that requires people to be more impulsive, like buying fast food, then yeah, definitely you want to use red when it comes to your color palette, right? So that's just one example. You'll see a lot of financial firms and companies like that will use blue with their logos because blue is a color that induces feelings of calm. It induces feelings of fidelity and trust in clients. So all of these colors, it's very, very intentional. So when you see these big companies using certain colors in their logos, there's a reason for that. There's a reason behind that. So it's definitely not just a matter of picking random colors. So I'm glad that you asked this question, but it's being very intentional about the colors that you choose and knowing that each color actually means something and should align with what your brand is about. So that was an excellent question. Thank you for asking that. Because I'm sure a lot of other people are thinking the same thing. All right. So if you guys have any other questions, feel free to drop them for me because I'm here tonight. I'm showing up to answer these questions. Okay. All right. So let's move on. So we talked about branding being more than just looking professional. So let's talk about myth number two, right? This is another one that I think a lot of people can probably relate to, but thinking that you can copy one brand and get the same results, right? It doesn't work that way because honestly, every brand is different, every company is different, and your needs are going to be different, right? Who you're targeting may be different. And so just looking at a larger brand or a larger company and trying to copy what they do may not necessarily work for what you're doing. So, yes, there are things that you can extract from what they've done, you can learn from them, but just directly copying other companies, I would not recommend that because it may not be what's best for your brand. Okay. So that's another myth that we can debunk tonight. So it's not about copying. Yes, you can learn from other brands, but don't just think you're going to copy what other people have done and it's going to work perfectly for you because it's not always the case. Okay. Let's see. So myth number three. This is another big one. So once I create my brand, it's done forever, right? Once I create my brand, that's it. I don't have to worry about it anymore. It's done, right? That's just not true. And the reason I think this one is so big to understand is because as people, we're always going to be constantly evolving, right? At least hopefully, if we're committed to growth and committed to learning, we're going to be evolving, we're going to be growing, we're going to be changing. And so if you're going to be evolving and you're going to be changing over time, why wouldn't your brand evolve and change also? Especially because I believe personally that business is an extension or a byproduct of who you are as a person. And so if you're growing, your business is going to grow as a result, right? Because you're putting in the work and it's going to show, right? And so it's the same thing with your brand. So just because you start off one way with your brand doesn't mean it's just going to stay that way for the rest of your business's, life, right? It's not. Look at all these other companies. Like Apple's logo has changed over time. Even Chick-fil-A's logo has changed over time. All these logos change over time. And I think the key is, especially when you're starting and you're developing your logo and what you want your business to look like and your brand to look like, you just want to make sure that you're creating something that's timeless, right? Something that can be, how can I put this, easily maneuvered or changed, or something that can last the test of time, right? So that's what you're really looking for when you're creating a brand. So whatever you start off with may not be where you end up. It may be some variation of that, but that's okay. Give your brand and yourself permission to evolve, to grow, and to change. Okay. So it's not a one and done. It's going to keep growing. It's going to keep evolving. Okay. So that's another one to consider. Yeah. Sean said, nope, it changes. Yeah, it definitely changes. It's definitely going to change. All right. Awesome. Okay, so if you're just coming in, welcome. Thanks for tuning in with me tonight. If you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the comments for me. I know we have people that are like hopping on and off. So if you are just coming in, go ahead and give me any questions that you may have about branding if you currently need help with your brand, and I'm here to answer them tonight. Okay? All right. So let's go ahead and look at one more myth that I have for you guys. And this last myth is probably one of the most important ones that we need to debunk tonight. Okay? And I'm going to tell you why. So this next one is the myth that I can just show up in my personal brand and still be successful, right? It doesn't work that way. I believe personally that success is not left to chance. It's not something that's random, but it's intentional and it's strategic, right? And so whether it's a personal brand or a corporate brand, whatever brand that you have right now, you want to have some type of strategy, because honestly, the only way to get from where you are right now to where you want to go with your brand and the goals that you want to reach is to have a clear strategy. And so if you don't have a plan, if you don't have steps that you can follow, if you're not setting goals, it's probably not going to work out the way you think it is, right? And so it's very important to make sure that you actually do have a strategy. Make sure that you do have some type of plan. And if you're not sure where to start with that plan, I definitely always recommend talking to a professional, talking to somebody that can help you with your brand and that can help you to map out those actionable steps, because trying to do it on your own will only get you so far. So that's another huge myth that people tend to believe, is that you can just keep showing up and eventually be successful. But no, you're going to need a strategy when it comes to your brand at some point, right? Okay. So anybody can relate to any of those myths? Anybody at all that you've maybe heard before or maybe thought before? Oh, we got another question. All right, Stephanie. Stephanie's coming with the questions tonight. Can you elaborate more on the role that branding plays in our businesses? Can you be a little more specific with that? I'll answer it, but can you be a little more specific? Because I want to make sure I'm hitting it on the head with exactly what you mean. Okay, so the role that branding plays in your business. So for those that are just getting on, I did kind of touch on this earlier in the live, but I'll go ahead and circle back around to this. So branding itself, right? It's literally the experience that people get when they encounter your business or when they encounter you, depending on if it's a personal brand or a professional brand, right? And so with that in mind, your brand, it's not just the professional presentation, because I think a lot of times that's what we think of the most, is the professional presentation aspect of branding, right? But it's the way that people experience you, and it's the reputation that you leave behind when people leave your presence. Okay. And so all of that makes up what your brand is. Your brand has to do with your messaging, the way that you communicate what you do to other people. It has to do with your story, your brand story, the way that you tell the story of who you are, what you do, and why you do it. It has to do with the way that you present yourself to others, the way that you communicate your value. It has to do with all these other components. So, all of these things make up your brand, right? Whether personal or professional. And so, when people talk about branding, it's not just a matter of how your business looks, but it's about the impression that it leaves on other people long after they've left your presence. Okay. So that's the role that it plays in your business. And so if your brand leaves a sour taste in people's mouth, or if your brand is not clear, or if it's not concise, or if it's not as effective when it comes to your messaging, the role that it plays in your business is that it can be either a hit or miss, right? You can either use a brand to attract your ideal client, or you can have your brand repel your ideal clients because it's not clear or strategic enough. So that's really the importance that it plays. It can make the difference between literally working with the people you want to work with and succeeding in business and not succeeding in business. It's that important. And I think people sometimes get branding and marketing confused, even though they are related. So they go together, but there is a difference, right? So branding is the way that you are presented, and marketing is making sure that you're getting your message out there. That's a simple way that I could put it. Okay. But yeah, so that's just to kind of touch on the answer to that question for you, that it plays a huge role in business in the sense that it can literally make or break your business if it's not done right. Okay. And then, of course, like I said earlier, with brand recognition as well, like if your brand is done right and people are able to recognize it, like anytime you pass by, um, McDonald's and you see that M, it's McDonald's, right? They have mastered brand recognition. They are on point with that. Same thing with Chick-fil-A, same thing with Publix. All of these stores, all of these companies, their branding is on point and you know it as soon as you see it, right? So that's another aspect of branding that's very important for your business, is that it increases recognition, which increases sales and loyalty, customer loyalty, okay, and trust. So these are all the different things that branding does for your business, just to kind of name some things off the top of my head. Okay. All right. So let's see. Making sure I didn't miss any comments here. But thank you for the questions, Stephanie. I'm loving these questions tonight. I appreciate this. All right. Awesome. 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 Okay. So let's move on. So the next thing I have right here is we're going to talk about some branding tips. Okay. And like I said, if you have any questions as I'm going through these about anything that I'm saying, just go ahead and put it in the comments and I'll go ahead and address it for you. Okay. While I'm on here. So let's talk about some branding tips. And I'll slow down for this part a little bit because I want to make sure that I'm really explaining this and giving an opportunity for you guys to ask me some questions about this part. So, tip number one, this is a huge tip that I can give you guys, is kind of like I was mentioning before, identifying who your target audience is, right? And more specifically, who your ideal client is, right? So think of your target audience as, oh, you got another question? Okay, I'll answer that in a second, Stephanie. She came ready tonight. Okay, so your target audience, think of it as the pool that you're fishing in, right? So this is the pool I want to fish in to get the people I want to work with. But your ideal client is the specific type of person that you want to work with. You can literally create a I don't want to say an avatar, but you can create a profile, right? Of your ideal client, to be very specific about who it is that you're trying to reach. And I believe that helps a lot because when you're able to narrow it down to a profile or a specific type of person, it helps your messaging to be a lot more clear because now you can feel like you're talking directly to that person as opposed to, just throwing your message out there to a bunch of people hoping that somebody bites. Right? That's the best way that I can I can explain it. So you want to make sure that you're as clear and specific about who your ideal client is, so that way when you are drafting up your messaging and you're creating your posts and you're doing all of these things, you can make it more conversational and less pitchy and literally talk directly to the person that you want to reach. And that's how you really create messaging that's going to resonate with the right people, because you're talking directly to them, right? Because you already know in your mind, this is the person that I want to work with. So identifying your audience is key, right? And when we talk about your target audience, just to kind of go backwards a little bit, just really taking the time to not just taking the time to not just, figure out their demographics, because your target audience is made up of so much more than just demographics. And demographics is just like, where they're located, their age range, their occupation, generic things like that. You want to go a little bit deeper. You want to actually look at their psychographics. How do these people think? What are the things that they really value? And you also want to go into their behaviors. What is their lifestyle? What are the things that they do? Where would I find this person on a regular day-to-day basis? Are they going to be scrolling on social media, or are they going to be at the gym? Like just really taking the time to analyze and figure out who this person is, how they think, and what they do, so that way you know exactly where to find them and how to reach them. So that's something I would say is very important when it comes to identifying your audience. So we had a couple questions come in while I was talking. So let me go ahead and answer this really quick. So Stephanie said, do you recommend incorporating your business branding into your personal social media platforms? For example, if you have business social media pages, would it be a good idea to incorporate your business branding into your personal pages to attract more clients? So I'll put it this way. The simple answer is yes, but I'm going to put it this way. You're the first point of contact that people are going to have when it comes to your business, right? So personal or professional, you are literally the first point of contact. And so you can't help but to integrate the two of them, to be honest with you, right? Because you are literally representing your business everywhere that you go. So yes, if you're talking about specifically like making the brand, like the visuals consistent for both your personal and professional, then yeah, that's something you can do to make your life easier. It's not a requirement, but you could do it, right? But as far as integrating the two, yeah, you're definitely going to have to integrate both of them because they're both essentially a part of you, right? And so, yeah, you definitely, I would say, incorporate your business branding and your personal pages as well. Because especially the way Facebook is set up, since we're on Facebook, I'll talk about Facebook. The way that Facebook is set up, to be honest with you, you get a lot more traction on personal pages than business pages, and that's because they want you to pay to promote on your business pages. So you're going to have to incorporate them one way or another, right? And so what I do is I cross post to my pages. That's what I do. So like I'll post for my personal page, but tag my business page to increase my visibility. So that's a tip I can give you. She said, I asked because if before anyone decides to work with you, they sometimes look up your personal profile. Yes. Yes. And that's why your personal also needs to be on point. So your personal brand needs to be on point and your professional brand, if they're separate, right? They need to be on point. And you want to make sure that whatever you're presenting on your personal profile reflects well on your business. Because, like you said, people are going to look you up. They're going to want to know who is the person behind this business? Who is the person that I'm trying to work with? And do I want to work with this person? So if you have a business and you have both a personal and professional brand, I would definitely recommend being mindful of what you post on social media and how you present yourself on social media because you never know who may want to work with you, but is checking you out first. Right? So you want to make sure that you are keeping it professional, keeping it classy, as we say, all across the board. Okay? So excellent questions, Stephanie. I love this. Yes, exactly. It reaches a larger audience. Exactly. Okay, I'm checking these comments, make sure I'm not missing anybody. Okay, Brittany said, great gems, love it. Thank you. Stephanie's asking your question, Sean. I love it. I love it. Yeah, she came ready with the questions tonight. Okay, Stephanie did not come to play. Okay, so this other question, why is branding important and why do we need to stick to it in our business? I kind of answered this one earlier when it came to brand recognition, building trust with clients, etc. So I'm going to move on to another one. Google myself. Oh, she's Stephanie says, from time to time, I Google myself to see what sites and images come up. Yeah, I do the same thing. You want to make sure that the way you're being presented on, the World Wide Web is on point, right? So yeah, I do the same thing. I'm right with you on that one. Okay, awesome. I love this. Thank you guys. You guys are awesome. I'm reading these comments. Okay, so let's move on to tip number 2. Okay, here we go. So brand tip number 2. Consistent visuals. So when we talk about your brand visuals, right? The first thing I'm going to say is less is more. Sometimes we can get excited about our business, right? We can get really excited about it and we want all the bells and whistles and especially if we're taking the DIY approach, we want it to be, you know, all the things, right? But less can be more. And what I mean by that is you don't want to overdo it with like, 50, 1100 million fonts and colors, right? You want to make sure that you're sticking to your color palette and sticking to maybe, I would say, no more than 3 fonts on your graphics and your images. And the reason I say that is because it helps to not only make the imaging more consistent, but it helps to make sure that people aren't getting confused with all these different things that you have going on, right? You want to keep it clean. You want to keep it, I don't want to say minimalistic if that's not your style, but you want to keep it classy. Okay. You want to keep it simple. Less is more. And especially if you're doing it yourself and you want to use, some of these free tools that are out here like Canva. I have nothing against Canva. I know there's a lot of, graphic designers that are like, oh, Canva. But I like Canva. It has its uses. So, yes, I'm not against Canva at all. If you want to use it, feel free. But yeah, that's one of the platforms you can use to start making just a simple, maybe like, text-based logo if you want to, and put that out there. Just having something consistent to represent your brand across the board and being consistent with those colors, being consistent with those three fonts, being consistent with that logo and making sure that your imaging is out there consistently and it's being presented in a professional way. Okay? So less is more. You don't have to do too much. Keep it simple. All right? So that's my tip number 2 for making your visuals more consistent. And if you have not invested in professional photography yet, I urge you to do so because as a business owner, even if you have a personal brand, that's going to be super, super important when it comes to people wanting to work with you is that image that you're putting out there. So make sure you invest in yourself because you're worth it, right? An investment in yourself is never going to be a waste. Invest in yourself, put some money aside, get some professional pictures. Don't take selfies and keep putting them on flyers. Make sure that you're investing investing in yourself, okay? Can't urge that enough. All right, so tip number 3. So I know a couple of you on here have been to my magnetic messaging workshop. So you are going to know where I'm going with this already. But for tip number 3, use storytelling to build connections with people. Don't just make everything that you post, say, and do super, super pitchy, right? Nobody wants to see that all the time. Nobody wants to read it. It doesn't reach people, it doesn't connect with people, right? You want to make sure that you're telling stories and providing value. Okay. So when I say use storytelling, try to incorporate your story, your why, the reason why you're doing what you're doing, the reason that you got started, and why what you're doing is so important to you. Incorporate these things into the things that you post, into your videos, and do more videos if you can. That's another thing, too. Do videos. Show up and let people see your face, see your mannerisms, your personality, get a feel of who you are as a person, right? Do the videos and share some of your story. Let people get to know the person behind the brand. That's going to be so so critical for building those connections with the people that you want to work with and the people that may need your services, right? But they have to be able to see you. They have to be able to know that you're there and know who you are so they feel comfortable, spending money with you and investing in your business, right? They want to feel comfortable with you. So show up and do those videos, communicate your story. And yes, image speaks volumes. Love it. Yeah, communicate your story every chance that you get in every way that you can. And if you're looking for ways to learn how to do that more skillfully, I do have my magnetic messaging workshop that I host a couple of times a year. So you can check that out. And I'll give you guys the info at the end for that if you'd like to learn more about how to incorporate your story into your messaging, right? But that's definitely important. You want to show up, you want to make sure you're doing the videos, doing the posts, and incorporating your story every way that you can on every platform that you can so people can really get to know the real you. That's so key when it comes to your business. Okay. So let me see. All right. So at this point, I wanted to kind of open up the floor since we're almost at the tail end here. I was trying to make this about 45 minutes. So if anybody has any other specific questions for me about branding, feel free to put those in the chat for me so I can answer them, so I can make sure that I am addressing the needs that you all have. I really wanted to create a space tonight to just answer some questions and, just make myself available to help people that may not have these answers or have access to this information. Oh, thanks, Sean. Sean is somebody that attended my workshop and she said it's worth the investment. Thank you, Sean. Okay. So if you have any questions, I'm gonna give it a second so you guys can go ahead and comment those questions for me and we can address some of those. But I'd love to hear from you all and see maybe if there's anything that you've personally been struggling with in your brand that you may want some clarity about. Whatever it is, go ahead and comment it for me so I can help you out. Okay. Q&A. All right. Let's see. Who has questions for me? Stephanie said, I'm going to stop talking. No, you've been great, Stephanie. Thank you so much. You had so many great questions tonight. I appreciate that. Let me go ahead and check the Instagram and see if anybody had any questions here for me. Okay, I'm not seeing any. All right, awesome. She said, go ahead and ask questions. Okay, anybody else have any questions for me before I get out of here tonight? Get me while you have me, guys. Okay. All right. Well, in the meantime, I'm giving you guys a chance to type if you need help with your brand, or you need some clarity on exactly what direction to take your brand in, or you need some help with your brand strategy, I do offer free discovery calls. So if you'd like to get on the call with me so we can kind of assess where you are on your brand journey and I can help you out with some of that, I have free discovery calls available. So you can visit my website at legacylifestylebranding.com. And I'd love to really dive into your brand with you and help you to get some clarity on where it is that you're going and how to achieve some of these brand goals that you have. Okay. Sean said, tell us more about how colors and fonts impact people. Okay. So, like I was saying earlier, just in case anybody that just hopped on missed it, there is a science and a psychology to colors, not just how they are perceived, because there's sensory and perception also, that aspect of it from a science standpoint, right? And a psychological standpoint, but the way that colors make us feel, okay, is very, very important. So I know that I mentioned that red is a color that, increases appetite, makes people feel a lot more impulsive and energetic. But there's also different ways that you can use the same color depending on the shade of it, right? So you can use, like, green as a color that's, about growth, nurturing. There's colors like yellow, which I recommend using sparingly, but it's technically the color that attracts attention the fastest because it's so bright. So there's yellow. You have some of our more luxury colors like gold, which can represent wisdom, wealth, creativity. There's also purple, which is also a creativity color. It can also represent mystery, depending on the shade that you use. So there's so many different facets to these colors and how you use them and how you should choose them. And that's actually one of the things that I go over with my clients in our brand design sessions when we're working on their brand design, is to really walk them through, the psychology of these colors and make sure that we're choosing the right color palette for their brand. So definitely there is more to it. And then fonts, there's different styles of fonts. You have your serif fonts with the little slabs at the end, like think Times New Roman, right? And then you have your sans serif fonts, which look really, really great on digital screens and computers. And those are the ones without the slabs, just those very clean, simple, simplistic fonts. You have more decorative fonts. There's like all these different styles, right, to consider. So there's so many things that go into putting your brand identity and your visual identity together, but you really have to know and be intentional about what you're selecting because you want it to convey a message that aligns with your values, that aligns with your messaging, that aligns with everything that your brand represents and encompasses. So it's definitely an intentional thing that you have to do when choosing your fonts and your colors. Sorry, I'm looking at comments here, guys. Yes. Okay, awesome. Any other questions for me before we get out of here tonight? I said I was going to stop at 8:45, so I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Any other questions? Okay. Anybody else? Okay, awesome. All right. So, if nobody else has any questions, I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in tonight. Thank you for all the great feedback and the questions, especially Stephanie. Stephanie, thank you so much for all the great questions. I'm definitely glad that I was able to assist and to help with some of these questions that you all have. But if you'd like to dive deeper with me, definitely sign up today for that free discovery call. Let's get you on the schedule and try to see what your brand goals are and how I can help you to get there. Okay. But yeah, that's it for tonight, you guys. And like I said, if anybody that you know could benefit from this information, I'm going to leave this live up. So feel free to share it. If you want to stay up to date with my content, make sure that you follow my page so that you're not missing anything. And yeah, that's pretty much it. You're so welcome, Sean. Thank you for tuning in. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay, well, thank y'all. See you next time.